Well, a very good morning, and thank you so much for staying with us. My name is Doreen Komhaj, and yes, it's a Monday. We just ran, an advert there on the Situation Room that will be happening tonight, moderated by our own Mildred Tuhaisa, and of course, Andrew Karamaj. It happens every Monday. And definitely tonight, they will be looking at quite a very interesting, a very interesting topic, and that's focusing on youth representation in Uganda. Of course, we are talking about a country whose population, consists, mainly of young people, and apparently 79% of the young people today, were born, after the NRM regime, came into power. That is something I find quite interesting every time I come across some of these statistics. So tonight we'll be looking at the representation itself. Majorly focusing on the National Youth Council and how exactly it is, promoting youth participation in existing youth program. Now, in studio, I have two gentlemen, Mr. Wabwire Emmanuel, the Executive Director, Faraja Africa Foundation, and Mr. Ibrahim Chitata, Secretary General, National Youth Council. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
How are you today? Well, youth representation. I just gave, a few figures here that got you laughing. 79%, born after the NRM regime. Why did you find it funny, and what does it spell for a country like ours?
Oh, well, thank you, Mildred. Good morning, viewers. Why I find it funny, it's in the same regime, we're supposed to have at least 2 terms.
Yeah.
And young people are supposed to see a transition. But this is where we are growing up, and we're over 30 years old, and some of us 27. But we are seeing the same old system, and we do not have a taste of change or a taste of something different. So basically, it's my definition of no progress.
Oh, really? Is it just about change, or or it's about what the existing regime has done? In terms of service delivery, in terms of comfort for the Ugandans, for you to be able to determine progress, regardless of who is at the helm of this.
Well, I must say the existing regime has done a great job in terms of security, in terms of us being able to do what we can do. But it has created a jungle fiasco of survival for the fittest.
Yeah.
In that, the education system I enjoyed in the 90s is not the same quality of education currently. For those who would want that kind of quality or even much more better, have to pay a higher price, and that means paying over 2 million, where I paid 5,000 shillings to acquire. So it's now survival for the fittest. If your parent is capable of doing it, then you can be able to acquire that kind of education.
But it's not just for Uganda, you realize.
Well, we looked at different systems. I personally looked at the Kenyan system, the education system. It's quite better, and it's becoming much more better than the Ugandan one. But Uganda was number 3. How different is it from Uganda's? One, it's strongly building the skills of the young people. Have you noticed in our country that very many Kenyans are taking up most of the jobs in Uganda? Why? Because they're more proactive than us. We are more theoretical at some point. But that's because of our academic system that actually looks at us getting the knowledge. I did a bachelor's degree in development studies, but it is in my closet up to now. I've never utilized it.
Why did you go for that? You could have been different, perhaps. Maybe.
Well, if I had the chance to turn back the hand of time, I should have taught technical skills in terms of how to manage a project technically, what to do, what to write, and all those technical things, which I didn't go through. All I went through is theories of development, Robert Chambers, different stuff.
All right, interesting. Well, that's a little, of what I intend to look at, but I thought it was, quite interesting too. Would you want to weigh in on that one before we get down to why we are here this morning?
Yes, thank you. About the young people's movement being actively involved in participation. Doreen, it's important that we look through the history of our nation, where it has come from and where it is, such that we can be able to dissect and analyze and be able to make a just presentation on why we are where we are and why we should either think we have a good foundation for the better future. Remember, the young people's movement didn't begin with us. It began way back, and since the inception of Uganda as a nation state, at the birth of Uganda in 1962. Even before then, you remember very well that the people who went through World War II in the 1945, these were young people. We called Aba 7, we went to Burma. The active participation of the young people at that time was into helping the seniors maintain what they had. It is next to absurd that this same scenario where young people only cared about entrenching the seniors in power is what still happens today. But also at the birth of our country, remember the major parties that brought independence in Uganda were mainly led by young people. People like Kakonge, people like Beka Mayanja. These were young people, very energetic, very vibrant, who took charge of the mantle of leadership, and even other sectors of the economy like business and others, because we had a young nation that needed young people. The Obotis were there.
You're speaking in past tense. Don't we have the young nation that we are referring to? Because if I'm talking about 80% of the population being young.
Let me come to the present. I was giving you a preamble of the past. The present today begins with 1986, where this government came into power. The Musevenis, the Besiges, who held the mantle at that time were people who were under 40 years. You remember very well that we have the famous Kadogos. In the current status quo, if such people went to war, it would amount to a war crime. But the young people at that time took the mantle of going to the bush and saving this country.
They desired change and went for it.
From anarchy. So we saw a very determined young population that took charge of everything that was around. What has caused what we are going through today is that I think, as he said, I want to partly agree with him, that we have a government that has stayed in power for long. But the reasons why it has stayed in power for long, recently, I remember in this Solidarity conference, that as you blame government, this is what His Excellency said, also find time to look at the opposition. I think we have a worse opposition, worse than the government, and this is what has entrenched this same government. I wouldn't wish to say it is the best and has given the young people the best, but as statistics have been clearly put, we are more than 78% of this population. And when it comes to voting, definitely every percentage that any candidate gets, the biggest chunk of it is for young people.
Yes, true.
So we are shaping this country's destiny, but from the periphery.
But it's us, it's us, the young people, that are deciding this. Because I like the fact that you're bringing in the whole issue of elections, the voting process. Because if we are 80% young people, it actually means that it is us that contribute greatly to the election process. So we vote these people in power. We decide who we want to have at the helm of this.
I would partly agree and disagree with you.
Yeah.
It's not the young people that actually have fully the voice now, I would say. First of all, I also respond to Chitata and say that we maybe even what in regards to what the heads of state said, in that we have a worst opposition. Well, yes, I am not opposition, as a fact. And we don't have the worst opposition. We have an environment that creates worst opposition.
What's that environment?
The government is in charge of creating a conducive environment where both key players can be able to play their role positively.
And we don't have that?
We do not have that. Look, for example, we cannot have meetings without consulting with police. Police who have the power to agree or disagree in case it's not in government interests. Sure. That is not a good environment for a strong opposition. You see?
But someone also has
Doreen,
to
partly
manage.
to chip something in, it's not the duty of the government in power to give space to the opposition. It's actually the duty of the government to entrench itself in power and keep it for as long as you can hold it. So, but this environment, yes, it's there, but you cannot plunge the country into anarchy simply because you choose not to have laws.
So let me bring this.
Not if it comes at the cost of the lives of Ugandans. We have had the recent leaks that came out of torture in police. That is something to do with the way we've been seeing how Besigye has been treated, or been seeing how youth opposition have been treated, and so on. Me, who is kind of watching from this side, would look at it as the environment is not very conducive for me to have a free say. Yes, I can say something, but then social media would be shut down during the day I need to do more sensitization to my fellow young people to vote wisely, and so on. That is environment. My capacity to be able to oppose or to objectively participate in the system is limited by policies or events that occur that are controlled by the same central government system.
So you're blaming the current regime for whatever situation we have in the country?
Not entirely, not entirely the current regime, but it's a key thing for not only the regime, but even us. We have a role. It's a win-win at some point because we also have a role to participate.
All right, now I like the fact that, both gentlemen that I'm having in studio actually have something to do with the youth today. One is representing, the Secretary General National Youth Council, and the other one from Faraja Africa Foundation. What have the people like you, the enlightened ones, what is it that you are doing to see that the situation, changes today, the situation, for the youth? Because if we talk about 78%, and if we talk about, today, the current situation has it that, a majority of us are between 18 and 35 years of age. Now, that is a very active, group of the population. What is it that you have put in place to ensure that we capitalize on this advantage that we have as a country?
Thank you. As leadership of the National Youth Council, we look at participation as the active involvement of the young people through 3 stages of engagement. One is at a planning stage, when any program that is coming up to be able to impact on the lives of the young people themselves, through their elected representatives, should be at the center of planning and ensuring that their ideas, views, and challenges envisaged by these same young people are put into perspective and respected. After that phase of planning, the young people should be involved in implementation of their own programs. There should never be a program planned, even with young people, but implemented without these same young people. Because at the end of the day, we need peer learning. And a young person learns better when they are learning from their own peers, whom they respect, who can understand them very well, who can respect them, who can listen to them, not necessarily being bulldozed and bullied around. Then the third phase of active engagement of the young people is at the level of monitoring and evaluating these programs that have been implemented for their own benefit. If you come to writing reports, monitoring government programs, ensuring and finding out whether they have really worked in consultation with other stakeholders to ensure that what was planned and implemented has really caused the meaningful change that was envisaged at the planning process. If young people are engaged at the 3 parameters of active engagement, we believe as National Youth Council that we would be at the best place to say that the young people are really engaged in everything. But what happens here in Uganda, I may not mention policies, but we have many programs that are simply thought about by our fathers, our seniors, and then they are announced on TV, and they're supposed to be received by the young people. I'll give you a case in point. Recently, we had the launch of the National Youth Policy, and that was aborted at the Serena Conference Hall. It was planned, passed by cabinet, then launched by a ministry without consultation of the young people, and we call this absurd. In a government we support with all our hearts and energies, this should never be able to happen again. And if it can be launched without even being disseminated, without being taught and approved by the young people, then what will happen when it comes to it being implemented for the benefit of the young people?
Do you feel, that the people planning for the young people in Uganda do not understand, the nature and the problems, the desires that the young people have in the country?
Uganda, because of unemployment, we find people working with the youth who have no professional training in serving the young people.
What does it take to serve young people?
You find it takes one being trained to be a youth worker, not simply a social scientist, a development worker, or an accountant, or an auditor, or a lawyer. It takes being a youth worker to serve the young people. But because of unemployment and misplacement of qualities and energies, many people find themselves at the center of serving young people without any professional knowledge of serving them. And you can only expect disaster like it is seen. For us, we are simply lucky that we are elected by these young people to be able to serve them. But we find a very big gap between what we expect and what we find in office. And we find ourselves in council almost as loggerheads on almost every program that comes up. We have only one running youth program in the country that has actively engaged the young people. And this is the Youth Livelihood Program run by the Ministry of Gender, passed by our National Youth Council. And whereas it has not really achieved everything it was planned to achieve, and we are going for midterm review of this program. I was
actually going to go down to that. It's also, I'm noting it down. Every time we talk about the Youth Livelihood Program, I want to see how much it's been able to achieve, but vis-a-vis
when
what
we
it
get there,
intended to
I'll
achieve.
tell you its challenges. But it's only a program that is running and has some semblance of involvement of young people's leaders at all levels.
If
from
you
sub-county.
if you say some, you know, you don't seem to believe in the program
Definitely,
itself.
I'm not saying it's the best.
You know, can we say that you've not done your job because this was your initiation, this was your idea, and this is something you're supposed to be supervising as a National Youth Council?
My role as a leader is to continue to talk about it and push it.
How long are you going to talk?
We will talk for as long as there are challenges to be talked about.
Let me go to Emma here. Do you feel that the young people in Uganda today have asked for what they deserve?
They haven't asked. They haven't asked. If they have asked, then they've given them the wrong thing. Maybe let me just first of all retract a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe my brother Chitata is failing to see the problem with our system a little bit. Our employment system in youth-related work is reward-based, not only in youth, in even other places. You find that somebody failed elections as an MP is rewarded as a commissioner in charge of something because they have some level of knowledge into that area, which is the reality that is happening on ground. That when we are implementing youth activities, youth programs, they are not able to actually do the real thing they're supposed to do. For example, the NYC is supposed to run the youth livelihood program, in my opinion, but it is another group. They just speak about it, as you've heard him. They speak mostly about it. They go follow through with these technical people who actually make the decisions on certain things. But then in our 32 district run, I participated in the previous youth elections. And I was able to hear, you know, voices of the young people in over 34 districts. That's Karamoja, Teso, and over 5 sub-regions. And then we discovered that, yes, the Youth Livelihood Program has good intentions, and it will be a very powerful tool if we used it well. But one, young people are not yet educated. They're not educated before they receive the fund fully. One, two is there's no needs assessment done whatsoever before they receive the funds. So meaning if they get the money, they can squander it, use it in any way they need. Number three, there is no general outcome which is planned, you know, systematically. Whatever is done is not participatory, it's conventional, whereby people come and say, you will do this, this is what you'll become, this is what you'll become. You get, say, I'll give you money, you'll do piggery, you'll become this, you'll become this, you'll be rich. That is not the reality down. You have not come to assess what are my needs.
That's a good one, yeah.
What are my needs and what are my things. What we have done is, we've looked at it in this way. We're saying that, okay, young people, we need to, one, educate them. Educate them in terms of social entrepreneurship. Educate them in terms of the opportunity we have is technology. This is an information era. We do not have to actually succumb to old business industrial modules of capital and so on. All you need is an idea, internet, and create your own supply and demand, and then you market, and that is it. And many other things. So that is the part of educating. After that, we empower them and say, okay, maybe this is a small grant through the NYC you can apply for, through these other avenues you can apply for and be part of it. The other part is to engage them. I'm like, if you're empowered, you're doing your business, you have money. You don't have to rely on anybody in the way that the system has created a dependency theory. If you say bad, I don't give you money. If you praise me, I give you money to do your projects, you get. But if I'm generating my only money, my own money, I can be able to engage and seek for accountability. I'm like, this policy you're making, is it benefiting me? These are my needs. This is what I need. So that.
But because of the entire reward process, you know, you're not able to speak out.
Yeah, the reward process creates
You're compromised.
Yeah, not only that, the reward process of employment creates people who do not know what they're supposed to do, number one, and they work based on theories which have been created by the Western world that you can do this, you can do this. I don't believe in that. And then the other area is the dependency theory is the one which kills our voice as young people.
Is it by design?
Yes, it is by design. For example, the elections, the NYC elections and the youth representation system is really good. It comes from grassroots, you know, cream de la cream, let's say the executive, and to the top. That's a strong youth voice. But because of the dependency theory in terms of poverty and exploiting, the government has mastered the art of not the government, individuals in the government have mastered the art of exploiting the aspect that young people are unemployed and poor. using money to manipulate them, that is killing their voices. Yes, it may be partly our problem, but also strongly the government's
But how
problem.
far can we get as a country with such a system?
With such a system, what we can
Because
do...
my assumption would be that it's at the expense of development.
Yes.
Yeah.
With our system, we have three things to do. Number one, as I said earlier, is educate young people. Give them trainings, technical skills, and information access.
But young people in Uganda are educated. They're always speaking out. They say this, they say that, very active on social media.
Technical skills.
You know. And
if
today everyone is going for
if you're talking about social media, 2.5 million young people are on Twitter.
2.5.
2.5. And of which part of them make the 5 million who are on Facebook? Okay, you get it? And we talked of over 80%.
Yeah, true.
What is that fraction of the 80%?
Now, Chitata, before you come in here,
yes,
actually, he raises very, pertinent issues, especially about the education, what you need to do prior to letting out this money to the young people, because it's one thing to give me money, it's another thing for me to know what to do with the money and to also be able to achieve whatever it is that I want to achieve. And my assumption would be that the NYC should be doing what Emma just advised us to do. What is it that you're not doing?
Yeah, thank you, Doreen. Before I come to that, I would like to enlighten our viewers about what the National Youth Council is, this body called National Youth Council. It was established by an act of parliament, the National Youth Council Act in 1993. Then it was the National Resistance Council that was acting as parliament under a chairmanship of Chigongo. But then it has been amended like 3 times, 2003, 2005, then 2010, and the recent amendment in 2015 as we are heading to the National Youth Council elections, as a body that brings together young people to unite them, to mobilize them, to engage in services that benefit them. This is the same body that is supposed to be able to ensure that the young people across the country are not manipulated. And we also are the ones who are supposed to take charge of these other civil society organizations.
But he just talked about manipulation. He just talked about that dependency syndrome, which is by design. Where are you here?
Yeah, I'm getting there. And this body is supposed to be at the helm, at apex of the leadership of the young people. I think the gap we are finding elsewhere, apart from the design, Uganda has the world trophy in having very good policies, very good laws. But when it comes to implementation, I want to agree with him in part that there's a very big gap between what is said and what is done. And the greatest challenge we are having is that the young people's voices are heard, but they are not listened to.
So
there's a very big difference between being heard and being listened to.
So, but you acknowledge that young people today in Uganda speak.
When you hear me, you say yes.
Yeah.
They do. They demand for what is it? A few.
Let me say yes. You hear me, but I will say you've listened to me when you implement what I tell you. I think we have a government that hears but does not really listen.
How can we make the government listen?
I think we need to rethink our strategies and one of our strategies that we need to put in place is, as he said, to embark on a training program that enlightens our young people from the grassroots.
Is the government listening, or are we simply making, in quotes, empty noise?
As he said, people in government, the government has the will through a policy, because when I read through the National Youth Policy, the Constitution, I see the will in government. But when you go to implement this and talk about it with a person in a government, for example, a minister, a permanent secretary, a commissioner, you find them close their ears and minds towards this.
Exactly. And my question, and this is to the both of you gentlemen, is why do you think these persons in government are not listening? Are we simply not making sense as young people? Are we demanding for air? Or do they have better plans or better ideas for us?
To me, it's simply about protecting what they have. You see, every demand made by the young people is supposed to encroach onto the territory of what someone already has. And in the game, you're either swallowed or you swallow. So the struggle to ensure that the young people are better will still continue for as long as what we deserve is held by others.
All right, in just 1 or 2 minutes, could you respond to that?
The answer, the correct answer, I would think, is the government, why they're not responding is because that is not the agenda.
Hey, what's the agenda?
The agenda is to attain and retain power.
And for as long as...
That's just a fact, yes.
And what has their response got to do
with the next phase?
Power?
The next phase?
Well, what their response has got to do with control power. Anything that sabotages that particular mission does that. Empowering young people strongly sabotages that.
All right, now, gentlemen, you will have all the time to discuss this tonight, in the Situation Room. I'm afraid we have to cut this at this. But, give us a brief on, especially, Chitata, could you give us a brief on what is going to be happening tonight, the Situation Room, and why people should tune in?
Yeah, thank you. People should tune in because these same matters we've been discussing and giving a preamble of, we needed more time to be able to dissect them better and be understood. And as we get a Situation Room, we need to show cause why the government should listen to us. I think the next phase of engagement with the young people will be win-win. We need something like a power-sharing system of governments, and this is the cause we want to put forward and go towards it. The young people should not be used as clapping and voting instruments. The National Youth Council should have a role beyond voting for youth MPs. We should have a role that is actively entrenched in governance and managing the affairs that pertain all young people, and that's the cause we shall be presenting in the evening.
All right, Emmanuel?
Why young people should tune in tonight? One of the solutions to solving our problem of participation is engagement and access to information. Young people are speaking, some of them, and others are speaking, but their voices are low. This is an opportunity to amplify our voices and increase more engagement and drive government to doing that. Government is thriving on our inability to have amplified voices. But if our voice is amplified at this current state, we shall be able to triumph. So I encourage more young people to tune in and also engage online, on Twitter, on Facebook, and make sure that our voices are heard. All
right, thank you so much, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. I wish we could go on, but of course, a discussion will continue tonight in the Situation Room that will be moderated by Mildred. To high sound, of course, the focus will be understanding youth representation in Uganda. So don't miss, because some of the issues that have been raised now will also be raised tonight, and of course, that will be getting more information in regards to the same, how the youth in Uganda are represented, and of course, what is it that we should do to actually, have young people's voices, heard a little more. Like Emma says, some are speaking, some are low, and others are simply not saying anything. So how do we get the young people to talk and demand for what it is that they do deserve? Thank you so much for watching. We now take a very short break. But stay tuned. There's going to be yet another breakfast meeting. We'll be going to Mbale. So stay tuned after the break. Good morning.